Hey, Art, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. My name's Art Casson. I am the sales manager for a company called Magnitude Instruments. Magnitude is a manufacturer of transient absorption spectrometers based in State College, PA.
Yep.
And what's interesting is that they've uh, taken an approach where they would like to become the leaders in this specific field. And what's interesting for me is I have taken an approach where I've worked in different chemistry labs and worked in different biological research universities. And it's really helped me on my own path into sales.
Yep. Sounds like a pretty easy sale.
Yeah, I would say not really.
No, I
We're
misread
we're
that.
we're at the point right now where the sales cycle on an instrument like that might be anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So easy, not so much, but what it does get is us to a point where we're able to build the kinds of relationships that need to be built on an instrument that has a sales cycle along those lines.
And what got a smart guy like you into sales?
That's a very interesting question. I started out, my background was in environmental science, and so I had biology and chemistry degrees from a small school in Pennsylvania. Little shout out to Mansfield University. Um, I ended up working in a environmental testing lab for about a year, and then moved on to working in a lab at a bigger university. I'm sure everyone has heard of Cornell. And so the first job I got with them was actually to do field work. And that eventually turned into a lab management job. And I worked at that for almost 10 years,
Yeah.
running the Cornell University Stable Isotope Laboratory.
Yeah, my old
And
job.
it was really a great experience. I got to play a little bit with the instruments. I got to learn how to manage people. So the people skills that went into that, it was really fun for me. That eventually turned into a second job in academia. I was following my wife around. She graduated with a PhD from the geology program at Cornell, and we moved down to Texas because that's where all the geology people go to in
Right.
the gas and oil industry.
Yeah.
Um, Eventually, we did make our way back here to Pennsylvania, which is where I'm based right now, just outside of Pittsburgh. And so it has been an interesting path for me because I started out working in managing instrumentation labs, and then eventually that turned into sales. And I would say a lot of that happened because I was trying to figure out my place in the world and having to move around all of these times. Finally, I threw my hands up in the air and said, I need to find a job that if my wife moves again, I can move with that job. And
Yeah.
sales was it. And I jumped in to the deep end of the pool, feet first.
And what was that like? Because I, I'm speculating because I've done sales. I haven't done what you did.
For me, it was an adjustment.
Yeah.
I probably did every single wrong thing that you can imagine when you first get into sales. And the person that brought me into it said to me at one point, said, Art, I know you would be good at this. I've seen you interact at different conferences, and I've seen you talk to people, and I know that you know how to build relationships, and uh, we can teach you everything technical about the product line. You already have some of those inherent baseline skills. And so it took a little bit of convincing, but I did it. And uh, when I first got in there, I thought, you know what? I need to get around and see everyone. I need to be everyone's friend. And that was really uh, an interesting point for me, because the now all of a sudden I'm the salesperson. And wait, the people that used to talk to me and knew me as the
Nice
Art,
guy.
the lab manager, now I'm Art, the guy trying to sell them something. And it really took me a little bit to come around to understand what my role was and how that separated me from my, personal identity, and how they're two separate things. And I think that that's a hard thing for people who are new to sales to come around to. What really helped me get over that hump was that I had a great sales mentor, who I continue to have. She's, I could still consider her a mentor today. We talk very regularly. And at the time, she was just simply a colleague who had been in sales for 30 plus years, and who was guiding me and trying to give me constructive criticism in my first 6 months, in my first year. And I I look back and I can't uh, thank her enough for pushing me in that direction. Because at first I was hesitant to take the advice all the time. I already thought, well, you know what, there's enough people here that believe that I have these inherent skills and that
You
I
got to
can
be
jump
right.
right into this. Yeah, I'll listen to it and I'll be polite. But then I realized she was really giving me the playbook for a successful career. And uh, that's invaluable today. And I would recommend to anyone that's getting uh, just jumping into sales to find a good mentor or mentors. And even today, I still have I have her as a mentor, but I also have other people that I talk to try and make sure that I'm doing things the right way, and kind of just getting some of that critical feedback that I think is so important. Because that it's really easy to have something go sideways, especially in capital equipment sales. We're talking about equipment that people aren't buying on Amazon. This is again a equipment that has a 12 to 18 month sales cycle. And when something goes sideways, you can really start to doubt yourself. And having that support system has been incredible. I can't say it enough.
Because that transition, especially when you were very successful at something that was very hard to do, both, being smart at it and then managing smart people.
That's right. And the the I would say that my um, movement into the sales arena was maybe, so it was a shock to the system, but it was also easy, because I went from managing a particular type of equipment in a specific lab to also selling that same kind of equipment, right? And so I knew what the
What it did. Yeah.
instrument did. I knew who our basic customer was. I could write up that cookbook formula, if you will, and make the right kind of sales arguments. Now, a few years later, I joined a different company and was working with equipment that was completely different to me. And what had happened at that point was I already had developed some of these sales skills that were required. That I also was like, you know what, even though it's an instrument that I'm not that familiar with. I know enough about people and helping to build these relationships that I'm not going to feel uncomfortable diving into this new company.
And I had a similar experience because I was a user of the first stuff I sold.
Okay,
And so getting the technical sale was not hard, but nobody taught me how to get the economic sale.
right. And I'll tell you, it's been interesting for me because uh, when I first started in sales, I was mainly catering to academic labs, right?
Yeah.
So my customers were universities, and it was easy enough because the playbook was the same every time. That we would go in, we would uh, we sometimes, and this is where I feel like I was making mistakes. I'm sure you've heard the term show up and throw up,
Yeah.
right? And uh, basically do a features and benefits talk instead of going in and uh, being curious and asking customers what,
They need.
why was I there?
Yeah.
I just made the assumption they're just like me. They're here, and if I was here, I would be here for this reason. And I wasn't asking the right kinds of questions, but we were still having some success. So I thought I was doing things the right way. And again, this is where that mentorship played into the future direction of where I was going to go. The um, the mantra of be curious but be skeptical, I think holds very true even today. And that's how my approach has changed over the years. Instead of going in and doing a features and benefits, now it's just all about asking questions and also trying to uh, understand how we can solve a problem, not sell an instrument.
Right.
And that was a huge shift for me and how I did things, and it's resulted in some uh, really nice relationship building that I've been able to do not only with our customers but also with my own colleagues over the past 10 years.
And was your mentor there to observe this, or how did they discover what you were doing?
You know, I was originally brought on as sort of a hybrid role. I was going to be doing sales, but because I already had like this technical experience, I was also traveling around with the rest of the sales group as sort of a technical
Yeah.
expert to help them.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was they helped me because I would go in and do this, the features and benefits. Here's what you need. Here's what you need. Here's what you need. Instead, we would get out to the car after those meetings, and they would give me a rundown of everything that I did incorrectly in a nice way.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. I'm sure I could have taken the approach of, I'm here to help you sell these instruments. I know everything about this instrument from a technical standpoint. That isn't what I did, and I'm better off for it. And it's been great.
But how did you humble yourself? Because I'm sure you were looking at them as like, look, I know this stuff so well. I'm sure, you know how to set up the meetings and get the purchase order through. But when it comes
There
to the
was a
equipment,
there there was a little bit of butting heads.
was
I
there?
I, I
Yeah.
will say that, and it really took uh, took them to make me look at my own self, kind of reflecting back. And uh, I actually think that at one point, this woman who's my mentor did a a recording of me during one of these meetings, and then said, here, I just want to, I'm not doing this to be critical. I just want to show you a couple of things. And that's when I guess that was my aha moment. I'm like, okay, I need to change how I'm doing this. And I think I just had the right mindset to make that change, and it worked out really well.
And clearly you could have done something else. So why sales? Were you money motivated? Were you competitive? What's the drive there?
For me, when I first got into sales, like I had mentioned, it was more of a hybrid sort of role
Yeah.
where I was going to be this technical expert, and I would have the flexibility to now move around. And for me, like I had said in earlier, it was really, I was switching jobs every 2 or 3 years because of these moves, and I didn't want to keep doing that. And
Yeah.
so I really made it a point where uh, I wanted to get into an area where I could help people in the best possible way. And so jumping into a company that sold equipment that I had familiarity with worked really well. Um, and all of a sudden, there was this competitiveness spark that I
Came
think
out. Yeah.
got fired up, because I was watching and observing how my colleagues were doing sales, and I was learning from them. I feel like that first year, I was just like a sponge that was just absorbing all of this knowledge, and able to say to myself, yeah, you can hang with these guys. And they were a great sales group that I worked with back then. That would have been 9-10 years ago.
Wow. And I always said, if somebody can get to that point where they crave feedback, not just are willing to take it, but crave it.
I also think that's what separates. You've reached a higher level of clarity, and you're able to separate yourself from maybe the rest of the pack, because there's people that might be just financially motivated, and
Yeah.
they go in and they make a sale, and that's that. They're on to the next one. Um, I don't approach sales that way. I want to make sure that we're providing the right sort of solution in the right time frame that can make everyone happy. And there are challenges, of course, of course, that go with that. But that's what makes sales interesting to me. It's almost like a puzzle, uh, and it's just interesting to me. Just the different challenges that I can have from day to day and week to week. I really uh, started off as being something I think I can do this too. Now I want to be the best at what I'm doing, and do the best for uh, the company that I'm working for. And I've kind of found that uh, that place here at Magnitude.
And was that a big transfer because you came out of kind of a knowledge profession? Knowing stuff was the acid test, to where sales, it's much more, how well do you figure out that puzzle?
Right. That that's a great question, and I think it's the heart of that challenge is how do you figure out different personalities? How do you figure out how those personalities play into their own purchasing departments? Do people understand their own company's process for buying capital
Right.
equipment?
Yeah.
Often that answer is mixed. So there's a lot of things uh, that need to be fit together, but I feel like an area that I've gotten much better at is parsing out those details.
Yeah.
I used to never ask, what does your purchasing process look like, when I was first in sales, and these were the simple questions that I just didn't ask because I was just too naive at that point.
You
So,
didn't know to ask.
right.
Yeah. How about as far as the hump of when you're a knowledge worker, you're valued for knowledge. In sales, no one cares what you know. It's what you can do for the company.
Absolutely. I think that especially as you're looking at uh, those sorts of relationships and trying to understand what different people think about you, this is where it's always good to understand your role as a salesperson and how it separates you from your identity as an individual, because you can start second guessing yourself. And especially now, I'll use my current company as an example. um, when it comes to the knowledge base and the knowledge base of my customers, I'm just trying to uh, talk to them from a perspective of solving a problem. And often that conversation, uh, if not checked correctly, can turn into a highly technical conversation. And there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
but understanding that there is uh, uh, you know a process that they have, and we don't often know what that process is. We don't know what their timeline is. Yeah, often a lot of the money that they get is tied to grants or startup funding, and you don't know when that's going to be released, and it's on their time frame. So understanding that sort of information becomes integral to that process. As it relates to the knowledge base, I feel like uh, whatever company I've worked at where I'm doing sales, that I'm still learning stuff every day. One of the things that we do, which I think is great, is I set aside at least 2 to 3 hours a week just to read papers, just to look at different insights within certain industries and understand where the science, especially as it relates to this equipment, is heading. Because it's important for me to be able to stay on top of that for my own self. And then also, uh, I I know, and I always want to keep learning. And I think that's important, especially if someone is saying they're a curious salesperson. They should be bracketing time every week to do things like this extra learning that goes with whatever their craft is.
Other than the showing up and talking too much about the product, what is another epiphany that either your mentor gave you or you wish you learned a lot earlier?
You know, it's kind of like the saying with card players. They don't remember their big wins, but they can remember every single big loss that they've ever had. And I think that uh, losses have been character building for me. I've already touched on it a couple of times, but trying to keep the sales role and the personal identity separated was a tough thing for me to be able to do in the beginning. It's uh, it's not so hard now, but when you're working on something for 12 or 18 months, and at the end of that 18 months, someone says, "Hey, Art, it's been great working with you. We've enjoyed all of those conversations we've had, but we've decided to go in a different direction."
Yeah.
Um, that's tough, no matter what. And being able uh, to pull yourself back up. I used to, I'm trying to think of the year that it happened, but I had this string of losses. Must have been in like 2014. And it was just a string of losses over a period of like 6 weeks. And I, I wouldn't say I fell into a depression, but I was bummed out. I mean, I was just getting those calls every week, and it really, I had to rethink how, what am I doing here? And in some cases you can't control that flow of information. In other cases you can. And I would say a big difference between now versus then is I don't have those surprises sneak up on me like that. The conversations are crafted and designed in a way to help disqualify people that were never going to be a customer anyway, right? We get our happy ears and we think this was a sale that should have been ours. And, I look back and uh, kind of back engineered those losses and turn them into learning experiences. I didn't do that immediately, but I did it, maybe a year and a half or 2 years later. I still had all of my notes and I was able to go and say, hey, this is what I did wrong. And now I can understand that a little bit better.
Yeah. And that's critical that you did that.
I think so. Yeah. And now I do that a lot sooner. Right. So uh, if there is a loss, and there always will be,
Right.
um, that you're able to look at it in an honest and clarified way, so that you can use that as a learning experience, and uh, just move on from there.
Especially when you're comfortable and even enjoy talking about the technology and they enjoy hearing about it.
That's right. I mean, it's it's one of those things where I feel like, at least as it related to those losses back then, I was having conversations with those customers uh, every couple of days, because
Yeah.
I knew we were on at a certain point in their uh, buying cycle. And it was just a really interesting time for me. And like I said, it got to be a little bit tricky, just from the perspective of finally taking those calls and saying, hey, Art, we've decided to go in this other direction. We're going to be buying an instrument from this person and this company. And yeah,
And
it really was a learning experience.
were they not getting your value, or were they just not a
Back,
mat they would not buy from you no matter what? Or what was the
yeah, I would say that back then, we always talk about trying to pull different kinds of pain or pleasure from a customer to try and understand where that's at, so you can add the value in based on what the need is. And I I don't think back then I did the right kind of questioning. I would always get that surface pain,
you know,
but I never took the shovel and dug down to the second or third level to kind of understand uh what was really
really?
happening. And
Yeah.
and sometimes I would look back and say, I know I talked to them about that,
I
and
didn't get it.
I didn't understand how that turned into uh, a loss. What eventually happened was I learned how to uh, ask the right questions, to dig down a little bit deeper and understand that a little bit better, so that I didn't run into that situation as often.
Yeah, cool. Hey, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm under Arthur Casson. I think I'm the only one on there. Or you can email me at art.casson@intrs.com. We have a webpage at www.magnitudeinstruments.com. I'd be happy to talk to anyone who's interested in getting into capital sales, capital equipment sales, or if someone would like more information on mentoring, I'm certainly happy to give additional perspective for sure.